All right, guys at home, can I get a thumbs up that you hear me and see the board okay? Yeah, all right, here we go. All right, so guys, we're still working in section 6.1, the operations on functions. We've seen 4 operations, 1, 2, 3, 4, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Guys, there's a 5th operation called the composition of functions. I'm gonna start it today, but with numbers, not with the actual functions in variable form, and you'll see what I mean. So yesterday, when you were asked to perform all of these operations, you weren't given an input other than x. X already lives inside of all of these functions. So when you were asked to take f of x and add it with g of x, you left each function in terms of x, and then you just combined it like terms, right? Everything stayed in terms of the variable. Well, today's problems, they're going to be dealing with, yes, we're going to be adding functions together, but they're going to be dealing with inputs along with it. So it actually becomes like a 3-step problem that you're going to have to do. The good news is it just becomes a calculator problem more than you actually having to work with the variables anymore. All right, so let's see what we got. So if you are given the functions f of x equals this, so again, this is the mathematical expression that defines function f. When you plug an x in, that's what's going to happen to that x. All right, and then we have the function g of x equals 2x minus 5. This is the mathematical expression that defines g of x. You plug a variable into g, and that's what will happen to it. Okay. Instead of them asking you to find f plus g of x, right? Yesterday was always about x. Well, x was already there. All we had to do was add the 2 functions together. Well, if they ask you to find f plus g of 3, now what they're asking you to do is they're really asking you to find f of 3, and they want you to add it with g of 3. Well, guys, remember, functions are input-output machines. You give it a number to plug in, it's going to spit a number out. So this becomes 3 steps. First, you have to plug 3 into function f and get a number. Then you have to plug 3 into function g, get another number. Then in the end, you're going to take the 2 numbers you got and add those 2 numbers together. So it's nice to be working with numbers and not variables, but it's a little bit of a longer process now. All right, so do this. So guys, first we got to figure out what's f of 3. What number do you get when you plug 3 into function f? So let's find that out. F of 3, let's do it off to the side. I'm going to plug 3 into function f. So the square is only on x. The negative 1 is on the outside. It's not being squared. So leave the negative on the outside, plug 3 in, and square it. Then we're going to do plus 3 times 3 goes in, and then minus 2. We have to figure out what number it's going to spit out when you plug a 3 in. So if I'm you, I'm plugging that into my calculator and seeing what number it gives me. I don't have a calculator right now, so I'm going to say this is what? 3 squared is 9 times a negative is negative 9. 3 times 3 is positive 9, and then minus 2. In the order they appear, negative 9 plus 9 is 0. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So guys, when you plug 3 into function f, it's going to spit a negative 2 out. So that means f of 3 is negative 2. That's the number that you're going to add with whatever number you get when you plug 3 into function g. So now we got to figure out what g of 3 is. So let's go off to the side and let's plug 3 into function g. Now g is a much simpler function, so it should be easier to plug into. So it's going to be 2 times 3 and then minus 5. 6 minus 5, guys, that's 1. So when you plug 3 into function g, it's going to spit out a 1. So now g of 3 is 1. So at the end of the day, you have to add these 2 numbers together. What's negative 2 plus 1? Negative 1. And that's your final answer. So it should take you at least 3 steps. Plug into f, plug into g, and then add those 2 numbers together. So pay attention to what operation they're asking you to do. So it's very simple enough, but guys, you know, you start plugging numbers in, you can make a silly mistake and get something wrong. So I think you'd be silly to not be using your calculator. All right, here we go. Let's say they ask you to find g minus f of negative 2. Well, guys, it's not x anymore. So I'm not just subtracting the functions with the variables in it. Now I can get a number value for this. So they're asking you to take g of negative 2 and subtract f of negative 2. Well, guys, I have to get number values for these. I have to plug negative 2 into each function and see what each function spits out. All right, so let's do g of negative 2 first, off to the side. G of negative 2, right? That's going to be 2 times negative 2 and then minus 5. That's going to be what? Negative 4 minus 5 more is negative 9. So g of negative 2, guys, it's negative 9. All right, then we're going to subtract that with whatever number we get for f of negative 2. Now I got to plug negative 2 into function f and see what number it spits out. All right, so if I plug negative 2 into f, the negative sign stays on the outside. I'm going to square negative 2. Then I'm going to plus 3 times negative 2, and then I'll minus 2. All right, negative 2, again, if I'm you, I'm plugging this into my calculator. I'm not going to use my calculator yet. That's going to be 4 times a negative is negative 4. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and we bring down the minus 2. From left to right, negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. Negative 10 minus 2 more is negative 12. So now you get negative 12 out when you plug a negative 2 into function f. Well, guys, what happens when you subtract a negative number? It turns to addition. Negative 9 plus 12 is 3. And you're done. How do we feel about that? Is everybody okay? So again, to me, it just got a lot easier, but maybe a little more time consuming, right? It just takes a little more time. All right, guys, the next one is down here. Same two functions. Find f times g of 5. I'm going to have you guys do this one first, all right? I'll give you a little bit of a head start. What do you get when you try to find f times g of 5? So in reality, you're doing f of 5 times g of 5. Let me move mine up a little bit and get ready. You guys are trying this one. Let me double check the attendance. I ended up getting negative 12 when I plugged 5 into F, and I ended up getting 5 when I plugged 5 into G. So that ended up me taking negative 12 and multiplying it with 5, and I got negative 60. Everybody good with that one? All right, why don't you guys try this one? What's G divided by F of 0? So you're basically finding G of 0, get a number, and then you're going to try and divide it with whatever number you got for F of 0. Guys, for all you know, it might just create a fraction that you can't divide, or maybe you have to reduce it. So just do one at a time. Get a number for this, get a number for that, and then look at the fraction you've created. Gotta love zeros. I love plugging 0 in. He's a nice number. It looks like I am missing Eudelis. Josephine. Michaela, it's not Michaela. Larry and Yusuf. And Josh. And again, as always, guys, I really appreciate those of you who have your cameras on. They're supposed to be on. So in reality, you end up with -5 divided by -2, which you can't divide. You can reduce it to a positive 5/2. I mean, I guess if you put 2.5, you're not wrong, but I would prefer the improper reduced fraction, but there you have it. All right, so hopefully this feels pretty good. Guys, you're okay? Everybody, yeah, at home, thumbs up, excellent, awesome. All right, so now that's still working with like your 4 basic operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. I told you at the beginning there's a 5th operation called the composition of functions. So we're gonna start it today, hopefully kind of make it easy, and then we can see the harder ones next week. So everyone look at the next page. Okay, so basically what a composition is when you take one function and it gets plugged into another function. So literally you'd be taking the entire g of x function and you'd be plugging that into the f of x function. So if they don't give you a number input to work with, if they want you to work in terms of x, well guys, you would literally be taking the mathematical expression that defines one function, and you'd be plugging that expression in for all the x's in the other function. So it can get pretty complicated when you're working in terms of x. I'm going to show you it with numbers today, then we'll go to the x's next week. All right, so the notation they're going to use for a composition, a lot of students call it fog. I get why they're calling it that, I do. And then some students mistake it. They think that open circle is just a multiplication dot that forgot to get filled in. So they think it's a multiplication problem. Guys, it is not. The dot was left empty on purpose to show that you are doing a composition, not a multiplication. So the way we read this is we call this f of g of x. I think an easier way to think of it is your f of g of x, and then close, close. So technically what's happening, guys, with compositions, you work from the inside and then you try to break your way out. So first, x is getting plugged into the g of x function, and then you're taking the entire g of x function itself and plugging it into function f. So it can get a little complicated for sure, all right? But that's what you're doing. You're plugging functions into functions. You're starting on the inside and you're working your way out, okay? All right, so then this would be g of f of x. So I prefer this notation because I think it shows more of what I'm expected to do. So this would be g of f of x, and then close, close. So at the same time, work from the inside. First, you're going to plug x into f when he most likely already lives there. X is who's inside of f. And then you take the entire f of x function, the entire expression, and you plug that into function g for all of its x values. So guys, the algebra can get pretty heavy, pretty involved when you're plugging functions into functions. So let's do it with numbers today before we see it with variables, okay? All right, my tip is to start on the inside and work your way out. All right, so guys, in example 2, I've given you 3 functions, not 2. I've given you an f of x, a g of x, and an h of x. You can use any letter you want, all right? But this is function f. When you plug an x in, this is what happens to those x values. That's the expression that defines function f. When you go to g and you plug an x in, this is what happens to that input, right? That's the expression that defines function g. And then when you go to h and you plug an x in, this is what will happen to that x value. That is the expression that defines function h. All right, so here we go. They want us to find, in example A, f of g of 2. So we're going to start inside and we're going to work our way out. So guys, if you start inside, we got 2. So what they want you to do with the 2 is plug it into g. When you plug 2 into g, you're going to get a number. Whatever number that number is going to go into function f. And you just keep working your way out, plugging a number and a number over and over into the next function. All right, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to plug 2 into g first. Let's do that. What's g of 2? So make sure you go to the right letter, all right? So that's going to be 4 times 2 plus 1. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. Okay, so that means g of 2 spit a 9 out. So g of 2 just became 9. Now 9 is going to go into f. So now you're going to find f of 9. So now we're going to go to function f. We're going to plug a 9 in for all of his x values. So f of 9. All right, here's function f. That's going to be 2 times 9 squared minus 3 times 9. I'm getting my calculator for this one. I don't want to mess it up. 2 times 9 squared minus 3 times 9. And you should get 135. So now 135 came out of function f. But since there's no other function to go towards, your last answer is f of 9, which was 135. And you're done. So I always think it's kind of like a puzzle. You just take this piece, you go to the next one. Then you take this piece, you go to the next one. So I just don't want you to think that it's not 2 going into both of these functions. It's whatever number you get out of the first function becomes your input for the next function, okay? All right, so now they've written it like this, h of f of negative 1. I'm not a huge fan of this notation. I feel like this one shows you much better what you're doing. But guys, in reality, you're plugging negative 1 into f. You're working your way inside out. So you'd go negative 1 into f. Whatever number you got for that, that number goes into h. But I like to rewrite it as h of f of negative 1, and then close, close. I prefer to see it like this. All right, so here we go. We're taking negative 1 on the inside, and we're plugging it into f. We're going to get a number for that. Let's see what we get. So 2 times negative 1 squared minus 3 times negative 1. That's going to be 1 times 2 is 2. Negative 3 times negative 1 is 3. We're getting 5. So when you plug negative 1 into f, it should spit a 5 out. So that means this just became a 5. Now 5 is going into the next function. So now we have to find h of 5. All right, so now we got to get h. We got to plug a 5 in. H is over here, right? Plug a 5 in, do the top, do the bottom, create that fraction. (15 minus 5 is 10. 2 times 5 is 10 minus 1 is 9. You get 10 ninths. Ugh. The good news is, when you plug 5 into h, when we get that number, there's no function to go into next. So that's your answer. Your answer is 10 ninths, and you're done. So you just keep working your way out. All right, I believe there's one more. I think it's got 3 functions. It's like h of f of g or something. Why don't you guys try that one? And then I'll do it up here, you do it there. Let's see if you can get the correct answer. Just gonna move it up here. Starting by plugging 0 into that first inside function. All right, so first I plugged 0 into h, and I got a 5. So now 5 is going into the next function. Now you're going to find g of 5. All right, when I did that, I got 21. So now G of 5 became 21. So now 21 needs to go into F. So to end it, you should be finding F of 21, and then that should get us our final answer. And I got 819. All right, and since he's our last one, that's our final answer. How do you guys feel? Okay, excellent. Guys are home, thumbs up, we're okay? Awesome. Okay, so that's the fifth operation. So the only thing that's going to happen next week is, guys, they're going to expect you to find F of G of H of X, which means there's no input, which means I'll be plugging the entire H function into that X in G. Get a new function. Then take that function and plug it into all of F's X's. So it's definitely going to be more complicated when you're working with those variables, okay? But let's try to enjoy the numbers for right now. All right, I did create a homework assignment, guys. It's on quizzes. It's 14 questions. I believe it's entirely multiple choice, if not maybe one or two fill in, but I feel like it's all multiple choice. All right, so you have a link on Google Classroom to click. Guys, if you remember, when we did quizzes homeworks, I gave you guys 3 attempts. So if you weren't happy with your first score because it's a homework assignment, you could do it again, and then all you have to do is fix the ones that you got correct because the problems stay exactly the same. Fix the ones you got incorrect because the problems will stay exactly the same. So don't come complaining to me if your homework grade is like a 6 out of 14 because you could have done it 2 more times, okay? All right, I didn't make it due until Monday night. This way, if you have a busy weekend with work or sports, whatever, I'm giving you that Monday after school as a cushion to still get it done. But guys, I'm telling you right now, come Monday, I'm going to assign another homework that'll be Tuesday. So they do start to pile up. So if you can get it done over the weekend, great. But I did give you till Monday night to get it done. Okay? All right, I think I have everybody's attendance. Let me just double check. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.